Hey there, Alex Kidman here. Today taking a look at the Laser ChargeCore rechargeable USB-C batteries. Let's get into the review. So a little while back, I reviewed a very similar set of batteries from Pale Blue, and these are the laser equivalents. And the big thing about these is that they are considerably cheaper. Where the Pale Blues would run you around 40, $50, these retail at $29.95 for a set of 4 AA or AAA batteries, which is what Laser has sent me. With due disclosure in mind, Laser has sent me these. I didn't buy them. That has no effect on my opinion or my review because it never does. That's journalistic ethics for you, baby. But I digress. Let's get on with the batteries. And look, in straight up battery terms, they only offer them in this standard AA or AAA form factor. And obviously, those are well-established design standards. You can't really do too much with them. I mean, they're black, as you can see. So I guess, in a dimly lit room, that could be a bit of a challenge. And of course, the big thing here is that they are rechargeable over USB-C plugs. So on the AA battery, that's, as you can hopefully see here, on the top of the battery. On the AAA, that's on the side because the top of a AAA battery, of course, is not big enough to accommodate that kind of plug. And this is all fine. My one caveat here, and this is not going to come through terribly well, is that the actual cutout for this socket on the AAA batteries is just a little bit rough, just a little bit sharp on the sides. It doesn't affect how the battery works, of course, but it does give me a little bit of pause concern for how well they've actually been manufactured and cut out at the factory. I could wish for them to be just that little bit better. Now, I did mention that these were slightly lower cost than the Pale Blues, and there's a couple of ways that is very, very evident. So while you do still get a travel case, it's much cheaper, simpler plastic than on the Pale Blues. It is, I will grant you, a little bit easier to open, so there is that. The other thing is that you only get a 2-headed USB-C charging cable, and of course it's, as you can see, quite a short little creature as well. Now, for the Pale Blues, you've got a 4-headed one, which I genuinely prefer because, of course, you're selling these things in groups of 4 batteries. There's 4 very poorly arranged batteries just there. And I can only recharge 2 of them at once. That's not so great. Obviously, other chargers and plugs can work. So how well do they work? Well, Laser makes the same kind of claims about these batteries, whether you get the AA or AAAs, as Pale Blue does, which is to say they're good for up to 1,000 recharge cycles, which might equate out to 1,000 batteries. But here, you've got to do your sums, and they are slightly different sums. And the big one here is that compared to the Pale Blues, the Laser batteries have a slightly lower capacity. So, for example, the AA Laser ChargeCore batteries have a 1,332 milliamp hour charge. You can see that on the side of the battery. They're not hiding that fact. Whereas if I pick up one of the AAAs and get it into shot, you can see that it has, hopefully if the light doesn't blind it out, a 390 milliamp hour capacity. And comparatively speaking, the Pale Blue equivalents, the Pale Blue AAs are 1,700 milliamp hours and the AAAs are 600 milliamp hours. So they are larger capacity batteries that should last longer. And look, I mean, in my testing, that's absolutely true. So just to show that these things do indeed work, I've got the Laser battery sitting in the back of a Game Boy Advance here. And, it's providing power. That side of it works, but comparatively, and I'll use the Pale Blues because they are a good comparative point for this, comparatively, I got a little bit over 4 hours off the Pale Blue batteries. These, maybe 3 hours. And obviously, battery draw is going to vary depending on what it is you do with a given battery. Recharging them is, of course, a matter of plugging them in, so I will show how that goes here. I'll recharge these 2 that have been sitting in the Game Boy Advance. And just for the giggles of it, and partially because there's not a power socket that close nearby, I'll actually just use a battery pack, one I've previously tested. In fact, this is a Laser model, or that's purely random, to do so. I mean, this is a little bit redundant. I'm using a battery pack to charge a battery pack, but it should get the job done. And there we go. You can actually see that those batteries are blinking to indicate that they are taking in a charge, but that will, of course, take its time. As with the Pale Blues, I've found that some higher capacity PD chargers do not always play well with these batteries, but that's always pretty evident. If they don't flash up, if they don't light up to say, hey, I'm taking in a charge, then they're not taking in a charge, and I would suggest that you remove them post-haste. So, should you buy the laser charge coil batteries? Well, look, it does depend. Laser's whole approach is, and always has been, selling as a budget brand. They're an affordable brand, and there are some compromises in play here. These aren't as large in capacity as the Pale Blues, and that will have an impact on their longer term battery life, but that may not matter to you depending on what it is that you're using the batteries for. Being lithium ion, over time, they are going to lose capacity, and starting with a lower capacity means they might become less useful to you over time. But there's some value to be had here, whether you're just looking at this from a financial point of view. At $30 for a set of 4, they're certainly not what you could call cheap, but you could spend way more than that on, even if we only took half of that 1,000 battery figure. 500 batteries are going to cost you a lot more than that. And of course, there is still the environmental impact to consider. Anyway, that's my take on the laser charge coil batteries. Got any questions? Hit me up in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.